Well, welcome back, everybody. We just finished up a wonderful session with the Village of Elk Grove Village and their industrial developer, the Brennan Group. Brennan Group will be having a open house next week, I think, on Elk Grove Village's site. They'll have some more information regarding that. It was a wonderful conversation, and we look forward to getting this out to everybody so they can watch it. They'll look for it in about a week. Today, we're really excited. We have a number of people lined up. Of course, it's got to be Gremlin Wednesday. We don't really have a session without gremlins, so we apologize that we're about 2 minutes late in starting. What we're going to be doing is we have a number of people that we're going to be bringing up, some just housekeeping for everybody since they're all in the presentation room, is Helper T, our indentured, not an intern, an indentured, will be helping everybody queue appropriately. We're going to start with Ryan, then we'll go to Angelica, then we'll go to Matt, and then we'll go with Zach and Ed. So what we did here today, and we're going to go right into this, is my name is Michael Edgar. I'm president of SelectChicago. SelectChicago helps companies that are looking to invest and distribute in land in the greater Chicago region. We do this in concert with SITCA, which is the Chicago International Trade Association, and we also work with the IT-AGC. Later today, we're going to be talking about how SITCA works with SelectChicago to help in soft landings. But one of the things that we really strive to get across to everybody is it's just not me. It's all about how this works bi-directionally. So today, we're going to be talking with the Philippines. And we're going to have Ryan Genner, who is with the Consulate General's office in Chicago, talking about what they do. We'll follow that up with Governor of the Philippine Board of Investments, and I'm very excited to have her here with us today. Then we'll have Matt DeCourcy, who I've been following his podcast for the better part of a year now. He does a great job, and we'll be talking about his landing in Cebu. We'll finish this up with Zach and Ed talking about their new companies in the Philippines. And when we finish the primary piece at 11 o'clock, we'll be talking with Joe Lee, and we'll learn about their U.S. expansion plans. So, Ryan, I'm going to turn this over to you. So I want to see if Ryan is in there. I want to see a thumbs up from Ryan.
Hi, Michael. Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. As Michael mentioned, I'm Ryan Henner from the Philippine Consulate General in Chicago, and I am here to discuss the Philippine Midwest economic relations. All right. The Philippines has been growing 21 consecutive years with unimpeded growth before the pandemic. And in fact, the Philippines was among the fastest growing economies in Asia, with an average GDP growth of 6.6% from 2016 to 2019. And this has been due mainly through prudent and effective fiscal and monetary policies and economic reforms. And as you can see from this chart, in 2019, S&P raised our sovereign risk rating to BBB plus, which is investment grade, the highest in our country. And our economic growth trajectory has also been in parallel with the increase in our sovereign risk rating since the early part of the 21st century. And as you can see from this slide, it's not only S&P that has given us very good ratings. Japan Credit Rating Agency, we have A-minus stable outlook from R&I. We have BBB plus. Fitch Ratings also, as well as Moody's, have all given the Philippines investment grade credit rating. And these upgrades and affirmations are votes of confidence on the country's ability to stage an economic recovery from this health crisis. And as you can see, this year we expect the economic growth to rebound to 6.5 to 7.5%. The ADB projects a 6.5% growth while the World Bank more conservatively has a 5.5% forecast for the Philippines this year. But for 2022 to 2023, we're expected to grow more than 6% per annum, which is a rate we've been growing prior to the pandemic. And I'd like to share that this year, the Philippines and the USA are celebrating 75 years of diplomatic relations. It was on July 4, 1946, that the Philippines gained independence. But even prior to the Philippines becoming a republic, we've had very close ties with the United States. And Michael and I were discussing yesterday about our relations through the decades. We talked about, for a while, General MacArthur, of course, during World War II, when he promised to return to the Philippines, and he did fulfill his promise. Lesser known is the fact that President Dwight Eisenhower served in the Philippines in the mid-1930s for about 4 years under MacArthur. And because I think Zachariah Waxler is here, I just wanted to share that when he was in the Philippines, because he had close ties with the Jewish community there, he was offered a job worth about $60,000, which was a big amount that time, for him to take the lead in looking for places in Asia where Jewish refugees could be accommodated. But that time, Dwight Eisenhower had spent about 25 years of his life in military service, and there was an impending war. So he decided to stay on in the military. But then, even then, he was able to be instrumental in helping President Manuel Quezon that time bring in Jewish refugees to the Philippines. And so they say the rest is history. He stayed on and then eventually became president of the United States. But it was in the Philippines that he honed his military, political, and diplomatic skills. Apart from that, even farther before that, you had our very own, Chicago's very own Daniel Burnham is credited with designing parts of the city of Manila, our capital in the Philippines, particularly the waterfront facing Manila Bay, where the U.S. Embassy is located, as well as the government buildings in the area, which is patterned after Washington, D.C. He's also credited with designing our summer capital up north, which is Baguio City. And beyond these political and cultural ties, of course, we've had very strong economic relations. And it's no surprise that many of the long-standing and successful companies in the Philippines come from the United States, particularly the Midwest. And as you can see from this slide, in the past 5 or so years prior to the pandemic, the trade between the Philippines and the Midwest has been growing robustly. It almost reached about $4 billion in 2019. And as you can see, growth has been evident in almost all the states here in the Midwest, led by Illinois. They are the top trading states with the Philippines in the Midwest: Illinois, Minnesota, and Indiana. This is a list of our main exports from electronics, semiconductors, to apparels, leather products, vehicle parts, and other exports from the Philippines. And as I mentioned a while ago, these are just some of the companies from the Midwest that are operating in the Philippines, either with commercial presence or trading with the Philippines or sourcing their products from our country. And the next slide shows more companies from the Midwest in the IT-BPM industry that are operating in the Philippines. And later on, we'll have 2 companies that will share their experiences on operating in the Philippines. And I have another slide here which shows that Philippine investors and locators are also investing in the United States. These range from companies that cater to Filipinos and Filipino Americans in the US, as well as companies that are able to serve the wider American market. So the main takeaways from this presentation, firstly, is that prior to the pandemic, the Philippine economy had been growing robustly and sustainably for 2 decades, buttressed by sound fiscal and monetary policies and macroeconomic reforms. It has been one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, and our investment environment is one of the friendliest in the East. Governor Angie Cayas of the Board of Investments and Special Trade Representative Nick Bautista will expound on this in a while. Secondly, the pandemic has adversely affected economies all over the world, including the Philippines. However, we believe this is only a bump in the road. Our growth trajectory will continue once the current pandemic has been put under control. Even during this health crisis, we have seen minimal impact on the operations of foreign companies. Moreover, foreign firms have continued to find the Philippines an attractive investment destination. Some of them have recently started operations in the country. These points will be discussed by Matt DeCourcy of Fullscale and Zachariah Waxler and Ed Ortiz of Roth and Company. Finally, the alliance between the Philippines and the United States was established formally 75 years ago. Yet our economic ties have existed for more than a century, and this relationship has only grown stronger through the years. The US Midwest has been a key economic partner of the Philippines, mirroring the rapid economic growth of the Philippines in the past decade has been the robust growth in two-way trade with the Midwest. Many more have invested. In the longer view, many Midwestern firms have been operated in the Philippines for decades. Many more have invested in the country in the past few years. Likewise, Philippine companies are looking to expand operations in the Midwest in order to cater to 350,000 Filipinos and Filipino Americans and the broader American market. Michelle Alino will discuss Jollibee Food Corporation's operations in the Midwest. Thank you, Michael. That ends my presentation.